invited here. I invite you, if you like, we'll pause for a moment and sort of just sync up our energy, maybe our breath. If you feel inclined, if you feel safe, you might close your eyes. If not, just fix a soft gaze on something. You might feel, sense the chair holding you, the floor supporting your feet, and then Mother Earth that supports us all. See? You might feel light from source coming in through the top of your head, but also cascading over you and around you. And it might feel like a warm shower, or it might feel like a cool, soothing waterfall on a cold day, on a hot day. Feeling the life-giving oxygen that comes in as we breathe and then goes back out. Feeling the energy of all of us in the room. And maybe seeing a point of light in our hearts, in that heart chakra. And then focus on it. Maybe seeing it grow bigger and brighter and bigger, growing and glowing, expanding throughout the room where our energy is united. We are indeed one. And this energy growing larger than this room, this building, spreading out to the community, making a difference to those around us. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and sort of gently return to the present. You know, I meditate a lot alone. But it's powerful in a group, the energy and the expansiveness, and the reminder that we are all, all are connected. And really, we all are one. As many of you know, I work with hospice patients, helping people prepare as they transition. And I loved what Claire said about Dave and his readiness to transcend. And often I'll hear family members say something like, "Oh, they're giving up." I'm like, "Oh no. They're not giving up. They're making an empowered decision for a different existence." And the first thing I ever tell people when I work with them or their family is like, if I thought the end of the body was the end of us, I couldn't do this job day in and day out. And so I really appreciate the way that Kevin wrapped up his message last week with the Thich Nhat Hanh practice of looking at each other and reminding our partner and ourselves that this body is temporary. If you weren't here, you would ask to look in the eyes of your neighbor and say, "You're going to die. I'm going to die." But death really isn't a thing, isn't it? We use that word a lot. And Kevin said last week, he was like, "I'm grateful that I didn't die." And we are too. We are too. But it wouldn't have been the end. And just like those folks that we might have put over here in this chair, who are still with us, I believe those, once they transcend and they cross over, they're not far off on some cloud looking over us. They're engaged in our lives. My dad, he crossed over suddenly 11 years ago. And what I grieved most at that time was there's no more time for our relationship to improve. It had been rocky. And I thought, it can't get any better. But I was wrong. And our relationship is the best now. It has been probably ever. And I feel his presence. I feel his guidance. Sometimes I listen. And I can say to him those things that I wanted to say as a child and a teen and even as an adult that I couldn't say, both positive and negative. And I believe, and more importantly, I feel, I sense his connectedness and his guidance. Kevin's story of his journey last week was impactful. And he shared that impact with us. And what these events like he experienced that are often called inciting incidents, they incite us to change. There's no going back. Once we have it, the trajectory's changed. Life is different. It's like pre this, after this. And maybe you've had some. And sometimes they aren't as significant or in such beautiful places. But we all experience these things. And what we really hope is that they are bringing us into a sense of awareness of our own sacredness. Because believe it or not, you are sacred. And we sang songs about this morning. Being sacred, being holy. Now, depending on where you grew up and what religion you might have been raised in, you might have been taught something different at a very early age. That you were bad and that you needed to be saved. As I've shared before, I can kind of see how that narrative started to come out. If you had been one of those earlier followers of Jesus, those who had given up home, family, life, career, everything to follow him, and suddenly he ends up dead, and you're in the midst of Second Temple Judaism, which has been a foundation of sacrifice for hundreds of years, I could see if I was grieving and I was devastated and I was bewildered, how one can make the connection to say, oh, this was another sacrifice. They had been steeped in it. They know nothing else since they were born. And the whole culture of the country was wrapped around it. Not only the culture, but the economics of it. And that's why Jesus got in so much trouble. Because when he was driving money changers out of the temple, he was disrupting not only the religious, but the economics of the day. But you are holy. But sometimes our life doesn't feel holy. And I brought a clip that might demonstrate how our lives feel sometimes. So if you guys can pull that up, and hopefully this wasn't your morning.
Hey! Drop my wallet. Christ. It just happened. What? Oh God. Watch out.
Does it? Nor does it feel that like I'm inspiring anything that's remotely sacred. It seems like I just generate chaos everywhere I go. And I just leave this wake and people are chasing after me and trying to clean up all my messes and catch the dog and stop the car and get the cat back in the house. Now, I don't know if you guys can relate to that. And that's kind of the dichotomy, is we often feel that we're not holy, even when we know it. We may not feel we're sacred, even if we've been told we're sacred. See, life is tough and it's chaotic. And one of the things that I see when I work with people in hospice, and what I tell people when I show up, A, I've already said one, if I thought the end of the body was the end of us, I couldn't do this. B, the other thing is, I don't have an agenda I'm trying to push. I'm tasked to help you to empower your spirituality, your faith, whatever it is, to mitigate any spiritual distress you might have about crossing over. Now, as Kevin reminded us last week, it does not matter what age we are. And from a scientific standpoint, if you're like over age 35 or 40, you are dying. You just haven't got the call yet. You just haven't got the diagnosis, because our bodies start changing at that point. And the one thing that I will share with everybody after working with hospice is to get ready. You may be like, well, what's that mean? Will, make sure you have a healthcare power of attorney. Because once you get where you can't sign checks and there's bills still needing to be paid and taxes still being needed to be paid, you need somebody to do that for you. If you're in assisted living and they need to be paid, who's going to do that? So get all the financial, all the legal stuff done. But more importantly, go inside and ask yourself, am I ready? And if you pull up any fear, that doesn't mean you're eager and wanting to go today. I know some days are like that. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm out. But if you think about crossing over, you think about what is actually a liberation and a freedom from a body that's failing you and holding you captive and keeping you in bed. If you are afraid of leaving that, ask yourself, what is it and why? What belief, what thoughts, what deeply ingrained patterns are there in me that are preventing me from looking forward to this change of location, to this transition, to this freedom that's scaring me? And dig around and address it. And you'll be doing yourself and especially your family the biggest favor there is. Because there's a state called terminal agitation that people can get into. They're minimally responsive, but they're in such a state of fear and turmoil about crossing over. They're moaning, they're yelling, they're thrashing about. They have to be medicated every hour, every 2 hours, just to keep them in bed while they're minimally responsive. And if you haven't done your inner work before this, right there in that bed is when you're doing it. Now, of course, the exception to this is if you die in some accident or have a sudden event like a heart attack. Then you don't do it. But for the majority of us, this is going to be our journey and our path. Now, I don't share this today to scare you or to bring you down, but to empower you. Now, some of my colleagues are here, and some of you guys are hospice volunteers, and you can attest that when people are ready to go, they go quick. And when people aren't, they linger and they hang on, and they can stay in bed for years, literally years. We have a hospice house here in town. We have 12 beds, but we have about 250 patients. We see people in their homes. We see people in their assisted livings. Hospice house is really just a last resort for people who don't have that care at home, aren't in a place where they can receive care. And the reason I share this in relationship to this topic of sacredness is because your sacredness creates your continued existence. We're here having this human experience. We come to the planet to learn, to grow. We have these encounters, these situations that we really don't like, that are painful and that can really suck at times. But they're really for us to grow. The alternative is that we just came to suffer. And I don't think that's what this experience is. I think we learn and we grow and we increase our own humanity and our own consciousness. And in doing so individually, it raises it globally, all across the planet. Unity's principle number one is that God is everything. in everything, of everything. The second principle is you, by default, that first principle, that includes us. But then principle 2 specifically addresses it and says that you are a spark of the divine. You have this Christ, which is a word for anointed, consciousness in you. And you came for creative expressions of this. See, we all showed up on the scene here to be holy. And I don't know what I was thinking when I was on the other side and I agreed to this, because I do believe we have a life review and we have the choice to come. And at some point I was asked, do you want to go? And I said, yeah. And so did you. But at times I wonder, what was I thinking? But the challenge is we have days like we saw on screen. Maybe weeks or even months of that. And in that challenge and in that struggle, we forget our own divinity. We move into a sense of complacency. And I love this definition. It's by one of my teachers, Riz. And he says, complacency is a feeling of self-satisfaction or contentment, comma, often unaware of potential dangers, risks, or problems. It usually refers to a mindset where someone feels things are good enough. I'm with you. It's easy to get there. It's easy to stay there. Where someone feels things are good enough, and we stop striving, we stop improving, we stop paying attention, even when action is needed. Basically, we stop evolving. We stop growing. As Kevin shared last week, this is a place of spiritual growth. But what he said that was really important was, we can't do it for you. You have to be involved in this. Now, we do have responsibility. If we're part of Sunday morning, it is creating a sacred space. And our desire is that you leave these doors differently than you came in. If our desire is that you come in more connected with your divinity and with Source. Now, if we don't create a sacred space for that, then we are in error. If you're not engaging in that, that's totally up to you. And there's no judgment. But it's up to you. This time right now, my hope is that it's a time different from the rest of the week, where you can come and it can be safe, and you can be authentic, you can be transparent, and you can be yourself. I know that a lot of us, we come with trauma because life is tough. And I know that for some of us, we come with religious trauma or religious disappointment. And we're ready to come in here and we're just like, okay, don't say a prayer. Don't say God. Don't say this. Don't say that. Okay, everybody here, give me your list, what you don't want me to say. And I will take it out back and burn it. Because if we just create a trigger-free zone, it is not a healing zone. We want you to heal and to grow. And if you are triggered by the word God, prayer, Jesus, whatever, we want to find a place where you can unpack that and you can express it, and we can say, hey, maybe this is what it's really about. We've been there. And those of you who've heard my story about my journey, you know, I totally get it. But what we don't want to create is just a trigger-free, fun environment. Because you can have that anywhere. What we want is a safe, sacred place for you to come in here, to bare your soul, to heal, to grow, and to leave here differently and make a difference in this world all around you. Here's why. Because we need you to do that. All you have to do is look at the media or the TV or anything, and it looks like the world's going to hell all around us. And for some people it is. For some people, the world is really scary right now, and things are really hard. But what we need is not me and you and all of us adding to that collective fear. We need us acknowledging, nurturing, raising up our divinity, and going out to the world and putting a positive impact that offsets the negativity and the fear that's out there now. But it's so easy to run out of the house and trip down the steps, and the dog comes running out, and the car takes off down the street, and we're like, I can't even do anything for myself. How am I going to make anybody else feel better? This is where nurturing your soul comes in. It's where community comes in. It's where space comes in. You know, we've already read our vision statement. The mission statement here is, our mission is to foster an inclusive, loving, spiritually enriching environment where individuals of all beliefs, backgrounds, can grow in their personal spiritual journeys. That's our mission. And as good as the social aspect of what we do is, that's not our first priority. That's a wonderful second one. Our first priority is your spiritual growth. You leaving here differently than when you walked in. Back when I was in school, we had to read books. And one of the books we had to read was Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. Are you guys familiar with that? And what I love about Dickens, and I really believe that he channeled, like a lot of his writings was channeled, is he talks about the paradox and the growth and the transformation of his heroes and the protagonist. You think about Scrooge, Christmas Carol, which Charles Dickens wrote. Scrooge, his transformation after having those three spirits show up to him. And he goes from being this clutching, fearful miser to being benevolent and loving. Something happens. In A Tale of Two Cities, he takes, one of the heroes is this attorney who's really wasted most of his talents, we read in the book, on alcoholism. And he has these amazing gifts. And he works for this sort of buffoon who just takes what this guy says and then he puts it out there and saves people. And then at the end of the book, this attorney who's felt like he's wasted his whole life, he's not nurtured relationships for his friend and a woman he loves and their child. He devises a plan to put himself in a cell and to be taken to the guillotine. This was written during the French Revolution. Dickens writes in the preface of that book, this is about 70 years after the French Revolution. He's in England. And the two cities he was writing about was Paris and London. He wrote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It is the age of wisdom, it's the age of foolishness. It was a time of belief, it was a time of disbelief. It was a season of light, it was a season of darkness. It was a spring of hope, it was a winter of despair. We had everything for us and we had nothing before us. In short, these are his words, it was a period like the very present." See, we find ourselves in this dichotomy of times, of paradoxes, and of positions. And what we really need is for you to recognize your sacredness, to lean into that, to feel your holiness, and to take it out in this world. Because the world needs you And believe it or not, you came here for this. Thank you all.